This episode is brought to you by Radio Mastery. Radio Mastery helps radio professionals to dominate their market and reach number one. Apply today at radiomastery.com.au.
Welcome back to Biz Audio, and today we're joined by Patrina Jones, the newsreader on The Christian O'Connell Show. With a career spanning radio, news, and broadcasting, Patrina has become a familiar voice to breakfast listeners, delivering the headlines each morning alongside Christian O'Connell and the team. But being a breakfast radio newsreader is about much more than simply reading the headlines. It's about knowing what matters to the audience and finding the right balance between serious news and the personality of the show. Patrina, welcome to Biz Audio.
Hey, Max. Thanks for having me on. I feel very prestigious being part of your award-nominated podcast.
It's lovely to have you on. And just for people who don't know how you got your start in radio, where did you start and where did you find the passion for radio?
Well, a lot of what you're doing reminds me a lot as a 16, 17-year-old. So I did year 10 work experience. I went to the local high school and we had year 10 work experience. I don't even know if many schools do that anymore. And journalism was something that kind of had sparked my interest a little, particularly broadcasting, news reading. And so I just did a week-long stint at our local station in Wangaratta at 3E and just absolutely loved it and really felt like I had found my people in a way. I wasn't always that popular kid at school. I felt a little bit awkward in social situations, never felt like I really fitted in. And then I sort of stepped foot in a radio station and it kind of felt like home in a way and felt like I'd found my people. And so that's really where the love affair was sparked. And it was really like you taking every opportunity, doing work experience at several stations. I was really lucky where we were geographically that there was quite a few really good commercial hubs. There was 2AY in Albury. There was 3SR in Shepparton. There were also TV newsrooms at Albury and Shep. So I just took advantage of every opportunity I could, school holidays after school, and just bug them and just become almost a regular member of staff without being a regular member of staff. And then after year 12, I did the Swinburne commercial radio course, which sadly is no longer, but it was brilliant. And it just puts you in really close contact with people in the industry, gave you doors in, I guess, and eventually got my first job back at 3E in copywriting, news reading when their journalist at the time was on leave, serving coffee to board members, just basically everything, promotions on air, and then eventually got into news that way. But that's what I will say is, when we were entering sort of ECE at the time, we had a careers teacher who, we had to make our do all our preferences for uni and stuff. And there really, apart from the Swinburne course, there really wasn't a particular, I could have done an arts degree. Anyway, his name was Mr. Beer, and I sat down with Mr. Beer and he said, well, you have to do an arts degree, a 3-year arts degree. And I said, but I don't want to do an arts degree, Mr. Beer, because we probably do like a 2-week unit, if anything, of radio, like you're barely dipping your toe in, when really I knew it was full-blown radio, what I wanted to do. And he said, well, I don't think you're going to get into this Swinburne course, so I think you should put arts first. Anyway, long story short, I did get into the Swinburne course. So what I'm saying is, my point is, there'll be many people that tell you no, and there'll be many people telling you that you're not good enough or that you have no hope. But what that should do is spur you on. And if you feel that it's right for you, and if you're prepared to do the work and put the effort in, there's no way that you can fail. So never let anyone telling you can't do something define you. That would be my wise words, because, if I had have listened to Mr. Beer, I probably would have become my second choice, which was a hairdresser or beautician. So believe in yourselves.
That is an awesome piece of advice. I'm going to carry that with me now.
I think you'll be all right.
You've become much more than just the person delivering the news on The Christian O'Connell Show. How would you describe your contribution to the show?
I think I bring a rawness, a realness, an authenticity about myself. I'm certainly representative of the audience. I'm bang on demographic. I'm a Western suburban mum, bringing up a teenager with a husband who's been married nearly 30 years, and I'm just like anyone else. And I think I represent probably that demographic well on the station. A lot of people say radio shows are won in the West, in the Western suburbs. And I think when you've got someone representing the West, which sometimes is always kind of, not seen as prestigious perhaps as East or Northern or Southern, I think that's probably the unique thing that I bring to the show, that I can represent exactly who I am. And, Christian allows that sort of forum where you bring your whole self, and everyone on that team is celebrated for exactly who they are, what they represent, which, makes it a beautiful environment in which to work in, to be honest.
And what's it like delivering the news, and what's involved behind the scenes?
Well, it's not just about turning your mic on and reading the news. There's a lot that goes into presenting a bulletin, and it's not just, you have to be really empathetic with your demographic, and you have to have a sense of what it is that people really care about. And I think living in the West, being a mum, that certainly helps. I have a great team behind me, an amazing team. I have James Royce, who writes my news for both markets, and an awesome sports editor in John Michael Brick, who loves his sport. And so the three of us all have our pulse on what it is that matters to our audience, and knowing what it is that matters to our audience. And not only that, but how to write it. You're not dumbing it down to people. You're not talking at them, you're talking to them. So with that, Max, you use particular words that will really hit home, not big words, jumbled words, just how you would normally talk to someone, like I'm talking to you now. So we are very, very lucky to have James and John. They're brilliant. I've worked with them on and off for probably, I reckon over 25 years. So we know each other instinctively. And what I need with the role that I do now is someone that I can really depend upon. I need a bulletin where if I don't have time to pre-read, I know it's going to be factually correct, well written, brilliantly edited, perfect audio. And that's exactly what both of them deliver consistently every single day. And that makes my job easier, because then I can, shift my focus onto the show and what it is that Christian and the team needs from me. So it's there's a lot that goes into it. James gets in just after midnight, believe it or not, to start writing for our first bulletins at 6 a.m. So, it's a bit like a duck underwater. There's, above water, it looks all fine, and it is, and it's perfectly succinct and off without a hitch. But under the water, there's this mechanics that's, putting it all together. So, I'm very, very lucky. I'm absolutely wrapped with both of them, and they're very integral to the news service that we provide.
And what do you enjoy the most about being a part of the Christian O'Connell team?
Oh gosh, I worked for a lot of teams, Max, over the decade, and that's not to put any of them down, and not because that's my show at the moment, but we all genuinely care about each other, and there's a real level of respect and endearment among us, and the listeners are just the most incredible listeners that we've got, and they share so much with us. It really feels like Christian's built this beautiful community, this beautiful village that we're all just a part of. And, the world's a pretty harsh place at the moment. So if we can help bring 3 hours of just joy to listeners, and they do for us most certainly, being human, not every day, some days you feel like, oh gosh, I could stay in bed today. But then you get to work and it just, I don't know, it breathes new light into you. going on air and having the privilege of doing what we do. So, and Max, no 2 days are ever the same. I love that about it as well. Christian has this unique style of radio where, you're not just crossing the T's or dotting the I's. Every single day is different. It's real live radio, and it's the way that we used to radio ages ago where, we get a caller and it might spark something in Christian's brain. Let's now open the lines to this. I think this is what we want to talk about. And I love that fly by the seat of your pants stuff where it's not, just a basic rundown, day in, day out, rubber stamped, office-like. It is on the spur of the moment, which is what live radio is all about.
And what's the most memorable moment you've had on the show that perhaps had nothing to do with reading the news?
Probably I had cancer a decade ago, and I had a real problem time kind of processing it, and everything happened so quickly. So I had a radical nephrectomy of my left kidney. They found I had kidney cancer. My daughter was 4 or barely 4. I had 7 weeks off. I was lucky to just need surgery for it. I didn't have to have follow-up treatment, touch wood. And so I had 7 weeks off and I was back at work. I couldn't wait. This was pre-show. This was before Christian had launched his show, but I was still on Gold Breakfast doing news only. But I couldn't wait to get back to work. It was it was nearly one of the best things that's happened to me, ironically, because it made me appreciate the ordinary. And I just wanted to get back and do what I did. And so I got back, but I found I was really probably not coping that well, but more than anything, coping as best as I knew how, given what we were going through, and hadn't really processed. It was just all so quick, and then back at work. And it's when things sort of settled down where I thought, oh, okay. And how that looked was I was starting to have panic attacks before I'd go on air, which was something really foreign to me. And, the news theme would go and I would my heart would be racing. I felt like I was having a heart attack. I'd be sweating. And I'd think, what is this that's going on? Anyway, so I spoke to someone about it, which was great. And they said, well, look, you're having, that's a panic attack, which kind of seemed obvious when you think about it now. But at the time, it was just very foreign. And I thought, if I can't get my shit together and kind of work through this, I'm not going to have a job. Like I actually couldn't read the news. It was terrible. Anyway, so I did get through that. But I still couldn't even say the word cancer. So if I had a media release, and it could be a positive story. It could have been, cancer survival rates have improved, for example, by 10% on last year or something like that. I wouldn't be able to run it in the bulletin because I couldn't say the word cancer. That's how kind of traumatized I was by it. Anyway, I am getting to your question. And then Christian's show started up, and then what he has taught me over the last 9 years is to lean into all of that. You don't have to be this perfect broadcaster with no bumps or bruises. You should embrace that because that makes you, part of the good broadcaster that you are, that you bring all that to the table. So anyway, we do several links, one of which through the week, I don't know whether it was a 3-word Wednesday or a 3-word weekend. It was one of those where we talk about, the highlight of a particular weekend, the highlight of a Wednesday. Anyway, I'd had my 5-year check and it was all clear. So it was 5 years post-cancer. And I really wanted to talk about it on air for the very first time. Mind you, there were family members that didn't know I'd had it. And certainly there were colleagues that didn't know I'd gone through it. I didn't want to be defined by it. I didn't want to be, oh yeah, that girl that had cancer. I just wanted to get on with it. But I didn't want to talk about it until that point. And I thought, well, I think And my daughter was getting older. And I thought, we are going to have to talk about it. Anyway, so I put it on my notes for Christian, and must have been during lockdown, I think. So I was working from home. So I was probably more relaxed in my environment to talk about it. And he said, hey, listen, we're going to do this coming up next. He's talking to me down the line off air. Love these notes you've made. Let's talk about it. And I thought, oh, God, am I about to do this? And then I sort of said to myself in my head, well, if not now, when? It felt like the universe had presented this opportunity and it was time for me to talk about it. And then I thought, think of the people that you can help by talking about it. Because, people probably think that I have this perfect life, this amazing job. But, stuff happens to everyone and cancer to too many people. So I talked about it. That for me was really the defining moment on air. But even more than that, it was personally, it was so liberating. And for my mental health, I can't tell you what it did, because it was okay to talk about it. And I did what Christian said. I leant into it and I embraced it. And I thought, wow, that actually wasn't so bad after all. And, probably if it wasn't for that moment, Max, I probably wouldn't be doing the podcast, and certainly would not be bringing the degree of myself to where that I am, and probably have that to thank for being not just the newsreader, but the broadcaster now. And Christian's brought that out in me. He's done that. So it's not, a prank that we did on air. It's none of the awards that I've won. It was just that simple moment that really changed the course for me, I feel.
That must have been a really incredibly difficult time. And it's really, really nice to hear that Christian and the team were able to give you a voice for that.
Yeah, exactly. And, that's the thing. Christian presents the opportunity for all of the team, and the opportunity to step up and own it. He's very unique in the way he does that. He really sees the best in people and how to bring it out. And, it's all about, to be really philosophical, Max, it's all about finding your divine purpose and running towards that. It's really what it's all about. And, that's the power of radio, isn't it? Where we can all share with listeners as presenters what it's like to navigate life at the end of the day.
And you've created and hosted your own podcast, Rage Against the Menopause. What made you want to take that subject and create an entire podcast around it?
This has been so cathartic for me, Maxie. So you probably think menopause being a young man, oh my God, menopause, something that I would go through. For me, so I went through menopause, perimenopause, and then menopause. And I actually felt really outraged, because I thought, why are we not talking about this? I just felt like there was, not enough information, that women weren't fully prepared, that they'd been gaslit by the medical fraternity for so long. And I just felt a really strong sense of injustice. I just thought, this is ridiculous. Why aren't we talking about this? We talk about, women having periods and conception and pregnancy and birth. Why aren't we talking about menopause? Like, is it because we're seen as women being over the hill and not significant? I just felt this strong sense of injustice. And I thought, you know what, if I'm finding that I'm kind of drowning in it, I'm sure other women are feeling the same. Anyway, I talked about it on the show. I'd read a book. I'd read Alison Daddo's book, which is magnificent if you haven't read it. And I was talking about it on our Double Thumbs Up segment on a Friday, and we got such a huge response from female listeners about it. And a lot of the messages that, Christian and I both sensed was that they want to talk about it. They've got something to say about it. So really, I just see myself as a vehicle to enable that. So Rage Against the Menopause has been fabulous. I've just enjoyed it so much. And I'm about to launch the third season in October this year, which is really, really exciting. And that's how I met you, wasn't it, at the Australian Audio Awards, where we were both nominated for separate awards. So it's been really cathartic. And I have a number of high-profile women and experts on the podcast. And it's a different podcast. It's not like a medical kind of very straight podcast. It's just an extension of me off the show in a podcast form talking about menopause. And it's really raw, it's authentic, it's honest, it's funny at times. And it's really just having a chat with women. And what it aims to do is to break down the stigma, to stop us thinking that menopause is a dirty word, because really it's a legacy to my daughter, Audrey, because, I think of her constantly as I'm working through it, because I think, well, it's up to this generation. If she gets to the point of menopause and feels the way I felt, then we've failed. We've failed our daughters. So it's been great. And, it's led to a few other different things, which has been really exciting. So, and it's lovely to do something different too, alongside the show as well, and bring more of myself out. I'm really enjoying it.
And what did creating your own podcast and talking about menopause teach you about broadcasting that maybe you hadn't learned from working in radio?
It's so similar to commercial radio, Max. Like, you bring so many of those skills over, yet it's so different. And I had to keep really telling myself in my mind when I did the first season of, there are no parameters here, really. You can do this is the beauty of podcasting. You can do whatever you want to do. This can be whatever you want it to be. You can be as creative, whatever you want to create, you can create. But certainly the disciplines of commercial radio and that background that I've had has been helpful as well. And certainly my journalistic skills as well in making it succinct. It's been great. So, but it's so different, isn't it? It is very different to being on air, and that's probably the beauty of it, because you can do whatever you want. You can create whatever you want it to be.
And did you expect the podcast to connect with people in the way that it has?
No, I did not. I'll be honest, I didn't. I'm one of those people, Max, which is probably quite common with people in radio, where, and I think it's a thing definitely for women, and I will say menopausal women, where imposter syndrome is really sick. You think, I can remember it really was Christian and my husband actually spurring me on, you've got to do a podcast. You've got to do a podcast. Yeah, I know I should do a podcast. I've been in radio for ages. Yes, I should. But I don't want to do a podcast just because I should. Because, hey, Pats, you've been in radio for 3 decades. You should be doing a podcast. It had to mean something. And I'd suggest to people thinking about doing a podcast, do it. But find something that you're passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is. But if you're passionate about it, that will shine through. But yeah, I had huge imposter syndrome, and I'd say to Christian, say, come on, Pats, he really rode my arm. You've got to do this. Where are you at with this podcast? And I remember saying to him, but what if it sucks? What if it sucks? And I had a real fear, to be honest. I had a real fear that people were going to see through me, that they'd think, oh, yeah, you're great on Christian's show, but really only because you're in that format. You're really not good enough to do your own podcast, which I know now is silly. But that's kind of what went through my mind. And then I had this attitude of, you know what, just do it. Just do it. Are you not going to do it because you think it's going to suck and then regret it later? Like, seriously, one of the things I love most about working with Christian is that he challenges you, and you really need that. Otherwise, you kind of rest on your laurels a bit and you don't grow. You don't grow if you're not challenged, and put yourself in really uncomfortable spaces, which I was not good at. I was happy to just coast along and, bob along with the news reading, and I was a really good news reader. That's great, but I wasn't challenging myself. So did I think it was going to be a success? No. When did I know it was a success? It wasn't even before I secured sponsorship for it. It was the feedback that I was getting, not only from women, but from men, which was a real surprise. Looking at the stats of the podcast next is really surprising. The iHeart team just looked at it last week, and most of my listeners, something like 29% of my listeners to the podcast are actually women aged 25 to 34,
Wow.
which is brilliant because that means I've cut through because I want to change the attitude that it's, menopause is just for old women. It's not. More and more younger women in their mid-30s are entering perimenopause, which is, that sort of period of time as you build up to menopause. That was surprising, but as well as pleasing because that's really the demographic that you need to hit to make a real difference, as well as obviously provide comfort and support to women 40 and 50. But if we can hit that demographic of 20 and 30, it means that we're really making a difference. And, some of the messages, Max, that people have sent me are just so beautiful. I had a woman, she was a nurse, she was saying how she'd listened to a podcast on the way to her night shift one night, and she said she stopped the car in the car park when she got to work and just was crying because she said, I finally felt heard. I didn't feel like I was going crazy. And there are moments where, you're so forgetful. The brain fog is so real, Bex. You just need to know that you're not alone. So it's just been beautiful. I love getting those messages. That for me is the best thing when I get messages from listeners. And, there was a guy in Scotland who listens to it. And he was telling me how he was at his local pub one Friday night and there was a woman, the barmaid looked a bit flustered and he obviously had a friendship with her. He said, hey, are you going okay? And she said, oh, I've just got really bad hot flushes. And he said, you need to listen to Patsy's podcast. And he said, I know I'm a bloke, but, I think he was 34 or something. He said, I now am better educated because I knew obviously mum was going through it, but I didn't really understand it. But he said, now I understand it more and it's equipped me how to support my partner, my girlfriend, when she goes through it. Because every woman's going to go through it, Max. No one escapes it. It's going to happen. Just that support I've got. And just knowing that, women feel heard and supported. That's more than anything on paper. It's just been wonderful.
And tapping a bit more onto the stories, have you received any stories about the podcast that may have surprised you or made you feel like this podcast is actually working?
Yeah, definitely. The feedback from the men, as I touched on, women who were, without being sensationalistic, on the brink of, their mental health was bad, like suicide. And we've just failed these women. I just feel there's a great movement now of a lot of women talking about menopause, some of whom I've had on the podcast. The more we talk about it, the more the stigma gets broken down. We just need to talk about it. We need to open the conversation and make it not so alienated.
And did you see podcasting as something you'd like to continue developing alongside your radio career?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So year 3, which I can't believe. So this is the 3rd year of the podcast. It will grow. It will change. The first episode is dramatically different to episodes we're producing now for the 3rd series. And so it should be. It's sort of a funny thing with the podcast. It's almost like the universe is pointing me in this direction and it's, it can twist and it can turn. It can be whatever it needs to be, essentially. I just follow the lead of the listeners. I might get someone message and say, hey, for example, I had a lady, urinary tract infections is a big thing. Can you get a urologist or someone on? So it's all those sorts of things. Another common theme is women undergoing cancer treatment have been thrust into early menopause. That's a big topic. It can be whatever it needs to be, and I'll be guided by the feedback I get. That's the beauty of podcasting. There's no parameters really. It's brilliant.
And when you look back at your career so far, what are you most proud of?
Oh gosh, that's hard, Max. What am I most proud of? It's really hard. Probably the example I've given Audrey, my daughter, who's 15 now. the example of not being told you're not good enough, proving people wrong. And yeah, just showing her that women can do and be whatever they want to be. It is hard as a working mum because do I have regrets? Yes, I do. And I lament about this a lot with my husband. I'll say, would I do it any differently if I had my time over again? Probably not. But, I was a working mum. So I went back to breakfast radio when Audrey was 10 months old, which was incredibly hard. And she was a long time coming. It took 5 years to get Audrey. So I finally had her and I thought, I didn't have a choice. I had to go back to work. Plus it was part of who I am, not what I am, but who I am. And there were days when she was sick, I'd have to leave the house at 3 a.m. And she'd be calling out, "Mummy, don't go to work." That sort of, it was absolutely heartbreaking. And, Max, I never got to see the violin performance at Assembly. And last week she sang at Assembly, she sung a Billie Eilish song. I didn't get to see that because, I was on the show. There are moments like that where you think, you never can get that time back. And I'm really conscious of that now. She's 15. She'll be going off and making her own way before too long. So, but every working mum has that dilemma of, what do I do? So I do lament that, but I probably come to terms with it in knowing that I am following my dream. And I probably wasn't a stay-at-home mum. Some mums are, and you do whatever's right for your family unit at the time. So I am proud of the example that I'm showing her. I'm really proud of the podcast because, that is something I've done all by myself and really leant into myself and believed that I could do it. So, yeah, I am really proud of that. And I'm really proud of the show and really proud of Christian and what he's been able to achieve. No one's done that. We've launched national this year. We're the first show to ever do that. To be a part of that team, no one can take that away from you, that experience. And, I've been very, very blessed, really, to have the career that I've had to date. And any highlights, Max? But probably working, like the last 9 years, nearly 9 years on Christian's show has been the best of all of the decades, in all honesty.
That's awesome. And I know we touched on this a bit earlier, but for someone who's listening and they want to build a career in radio and podcasting or broadcasting, what's the biggest piece of advice you give them and to help them break in this world where there's redundancies happening or AI taking jobs?
Yeah, AI is really scary, isn't it? It's
yes.
I don't know if we fully, I don't know if we've seen enough of AI to know its real impact yet, but it is a looming threat. That's for sure, especially for voiceover artists. It's a bit scary, actually. The best, most positive thing I could say to anyone wanting to follow that path is to just be yourself. Don't try to be anyone else. Grasp all the opportunities you have. Grasp all of them. And what I'll say about radio news, it's not all sunshine and lipstick. It's hard work. You are in at 3 a.m. for the most part. Look at James, my editor. He's in at 12:30. It's hard work, and if you've got the passion to do it, though, you should do it. And I'd definitely say you should be doing a podcast. Just like exactly what you're doing, Max. You're doing exactly what you should be doing, and you're doing work experience. I see you've done work experience with ARN. All those, grasp every single opportunity that you have. Get yourself out there. You guys have got social media now. I didn't have social media as a 17-year-old. Upskill yourself with all of that and get to know people. A lot of, any industry really, it's kind of who you know and not what you know. So make those inroads. And a podcast is a great way to do it.
And I've got some quick fire questions to finish up.
Yeah.
What's your favourite food?
Oh, God, that's hard. Probably anything my husband cooks. Chris is an awesome cook. What's the best thing he cooks? Probably just his roast pork at Christmas time. But I'm a bit partial to Indian food.
I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah, we've got a great local Indian restaurant, and they just make the best naan bread with mint. Oh, it's magnificent.
What's your coffee order?
Coffee order is just a skinny latte, or sometimes I'll go not a magic, piccolo. I don't mind a piccolo.
And a podcast you're currently listening to?
Oh, that's hard. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, actually. Well, I heard yours the other day. I listened to a few episodes. I was very impressed, so I'll say yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Favourite musician?
Brian Adams.
Favourite actor?
Oh, that's really hard. Probably Meryl Streep.
And this is a bit... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, it'd be Meryl Streep.
And this is a bit more of a difficult question, but if you could have a famous actor play you in a movie, who would you choose?
God. Well, someone once said I look like Monica Lewinsky, but she's not an actor. Probably Melissa McCarthy.
Wow.
I think she's brilliant. I think she's gorgeous.
Favourite radio talent, past or present?
Oh, sorry, my dog's just come in the office, shoved his big head through the door. He's the size of a pony, Max, so I'm just going to close the door.
Oh, wow.
Can you give me that question again?
Favourite radio talent, past or present?
Oh, crikey. Oh, God, that's hard. That's really hard. I would have to say probably newsworthy and journalistically, probably Darren Hinch. I can remember listening to him as a young schoolgirl on the radio and thinking, wow, that's really impressive. Probably Darren, who's just recently passed. As far as women, Bridget DeClough, who I had the honour of working with, outrageously funny, incredibly intelligent, and a beautiful big heart.
And would you say you're a morning person or a night person?
I'm definitely a morning person. Definitely a morning person. I think it's the best part of the day, Max, the morning. And, every morning you wake up, you think, I wonder what we'll do on the show today. Like there's always this, even when you're not working, when you get up in the morning, there's always a sense of optimism for the day. Definitely not a night person, and not after doing nearly 40 years of breakfast radio. I'm definitely not a night person. Like I'll give you an example. So it's Saturday here in Melbourne. Last night, because I'm such a party goer, last night I went to bed at 10 to 7 because I was falling asleep on the couch and the family said, go to bed. So, yeah, definitely not a night person. I love my bed.
And so you would say that working breakfast radio has gotten you used to those hours?
Sadly, yes. It's nothing unusual for us if we go out for dinner I'll give you an example. Last Saturday, we went and saw a production. We went and saw a play and we thought, we'll have dinner before we go. So we had a 4 p.m. dinner booking.
Wow.
So, we're worse than even pensioners. Even kids at that time, Max. It's insane. So I'm going to be a whole lot of fun when I eventually retire because I think this is like my groove is, I'll be probably one of those pensioners that go to bed at 3:30 or something and wake up at 1 a.m.
Like an owl.
Yes, owl Pats.
Do you have a dream holiday destination?
Yeah, I do. We've never been to Europe, which is I know, right? It's disgusting. So we've been to America a couple of times, Asia, New Zealand, which is starting. Never done Europe. I think we always had this thought that, you need 4 to 6 weeks, and we never had that time when really we should have changed our thinking and thought, even if we've got 14 days, just do it. But it's such a long way, right? But that is definitely on the bucket list. You know, I haven't even seen London yet, which is just ridiculous. And I know I'm going to love it. I know exactly what I want to do there. So that is definitely on the list. And Chris and I are really kind of conscious of that now as Audrey's getting older, because, you know, we want to do it together as a family would be ideal. So, hopefully in the next 3 years, definitely Europe. Greece and Italy. It looks stunning. I know I'm going to love it. So one day, hopefully, fingers crossed.
And maybe one day, if the show goes international, that would be great.
Well, it kind of already is, right? With podcasting.
Absolutely.
So that would be awesome.
Well, a big thank you, Patrina, for joining us on Biz Audio.
You're welcome, Max. Hey, listen, I want to congratulate you on what you're doing. It is absolutely marvelous. Keep doing what you're doing. I love your passion. I love your enthusiasm. And it was such an honor to meet you at the Audio Awards. It was so lovely. Thank you for coming up and introducing yourself. I've heard a lot about you. I'm very impressed and very proud of you for what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Oh, thank you so much. And it was an absolute honor to meet you, and it's a pleasure to be chatting with you on here.
All the best, Maxie. You might be my boss one day, I suspect. Oh. You might be my boss. Just remember old Patsy, won't you?
Oh, well, I'll start off down in Wangaratta at 3AE, and then I'll work my way up.
Hey, you could do worse.
Well, you can catch the Christian O'Connell Show weekday mornings from 6 to 9 a.m. on Melbourne's Gold 104.3, Sydney's Gold 101.7, and on DAB Plus in Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. And be sure to check out Rage Against the Menopause wherever you get your podcasts.